Hello and welcome to session one of our mission interviews with mission partners. And I'm so glad to have Scott and Elmarie Parker, their PCUSA mission co-workers serving in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. And we're going to get right into our questions today. So welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
With you.
Would you just quickly introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, we're Scott and Elmarie Parker. We've been mission co-workers for Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, living in Beirut, going on, 9 years now.
That's amazing.
And it's really become our home. Just one thing, I guess, to focus on, I love the term mission co-worker because it really emphasizes, I think the heart of our work is the people in the regions that they are doing amazing work. They're making the reputation of the Lord beautiful. They are meeting human need, building bridges, and so our work is really to come alongside of them and say, okay, man, how can we encourage you and support the stuff that God is using you to do? That's what we do.
And we hail each of us, Scott, from Omaha, Nebraska, and I spent most of my growing up years in Oregon. And so we bumped into each other during seminary studies in Southern California. So that's how our paths crossed. And ministry life has held a lot of different adventures as we've served with local congregations in Southern California and Florida and Ohio, Northeast Ohio, before picking up this call. Yeah. So we've also had a chance to be a part of some really different cultural dynamics in the US as well, and have learned a lot from each of the places where we've been privileged to serve.
Yeah. People ask if we have children. We don't have biological children, although we have a lot of children that we have engaged with through our work, and we have many fur kids that we treat like children, and it's a bit weird. But.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you decided to become mission co-workers.
Oh, that's such a great question. And really, it boils down to a prayer that Christ's Spirit put on my heart back in 2008, and it became a regular part of my devotional life. And it was, Lord, is there a particular people or place that you would have me share your passion for? And out of that prayer came really the invitation in 2011 to visit with our Presbyterian church partners in Iraq. And I just knew I had to be on that trip. It was such a deep resonance in my spirit. And through that visit, really seeing the way in which our partners in Iraq were bearing witness to the ways of Jesus Christ in their communities, it turned my world upside down. And I knew I needed to be in a place where I could be discipled by them. And so it's really out of that trip that this call emerged on both of our lives, as Scott also heard me share those stories. And so that has been a tremendous privilege over these years, really learning from our partners and seeking to share what we're learning with our partners in the United States as well, so that all of our discipleship can be encouraged.
Yeah. Thank you. I know that you have you been serving in that area in the Middle East the whole time?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. We've been based in Beirut for nearly 8.5 years. It'll be 9 years at the end of June. So. And we're expanding our partnership circle, not only to Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, but increasingly also with partners in the Gulf states, which is a very different context and flavor of ministry than what our partners in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon are about. So we're learning other cultural dynamics and other ministry priorities and realities as well. So we're grateful for that.
What can you tell us about some of your top priorities where you're serving right now?
For me, right now, it's really around the issues of trauma and child trauma. I think over the past couple of years, I think globally, I think we understand that. Elmarie often talks about the situation in Lebanon, that they have had 4 tsunamis of just catastrophes that have happened in a short time, and that accumulation of really hard adverse things. That's part of where trauma gets to be a real serious thing. And we experienced that in the US, just with multiple huge challenges on top of each other. And right now in the Ukraine, that's an issue that a lot of us in trauma work are really concerned about, is just how this crisis is affecting the people. And for me, I really focus on child trauma. Research tells us, there's a great study called the ACEs study, many folks are familiar with, that really connects that unaddressed childhood trauma is going to really make it very hard to thrive as an adult. It affects your ability to learn, to have sustainable employment, divorce, even heart disease. Is impacted by unaddressed childhood trauma. And so I'm working with my partners in the Middle East Council of Churches. We have started with a program with Iraqi and Syrian refugees. It's called Strong Kids, Strong Emotions. And we're using a biology-based trauma resiliency model that teaches people very simple skills that then can be passed on to your neighbors and your kids. And this is a way to kind of spread resiliency skills through the region. We're starting to work with some church partners in the US of doing that, working with adults as well, but really trying to help people keep going in the midst of a crisis that's going to not be resolved very quickly.
And I think for me, this circles back to what Scott was talking about in the language of being a mission co-worker. In my role as a regional liaison, so much of my work is about accompaniment of our partners and walking alongside and being present. And that ministry of presence, I think, matters even more at this point, where there are these intersecting calamities that are not only happening in the region, but beyond the region, that impact the region in some significant ways. And so that remains a top priority, of being present on behalf of all of you who also have a heart for this region. And we regularly hear from our partners what a difference it makes that we, on behalf of the Presbyterian Church USA, are a visible representation of the kind of holistic partnership that we're committed to as Presbyterians, through prayer, through visits, through correspondence, through financial collaborations. All of that comes together by being present.
Amen. We're so grateful to be able to be connected through you in that way. Is there anything going on currently with you all that you'd be able to share? Any activities or programs beyond what you've mentioned that are specifically happening right now?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about work that our partners are doing in the context of what's happened in Lebanon. Scott mentioned these 4 tsunami type events that have enveloped Lebanon over the last 2 years. And so it's a very different country for all of us living in Lebanon than anything any of us have known, not just us who have been there for 8-9 years, but for our Lebanese friends and partners who lived through the Civil War. And they say, never at the worst of the Civil War did we experience anything like what's going on in our country now. And so the economic collapse, the banking collapse, the dynamics of the pandemic that just multiplied the impact of those 2 different tsunami events of the economic and banking collapse. And then there's the Beirut port explosion as well. And I just want to share one picture while we're talking about that. I'll
There we go.
start this here. So this was taken at the 1-year remembrance of the Beirut port explosion. And you can see in the background, these are the grain silos for the country that are situated right at the port. And when the shockwaves of that explosion started moving out from the port, it destroyed these concrete silos. This is the grain storage for the country. And
any remaining grain is contaminated, so
Wow.
nothing can be used.
Yeah. And so right now you add to that loss, the invasion of Ukraine and the war that's going on there. Lebanon has been looking for where else it can import grain from, and it has contracts with Ukraine and parts of Russia for grain shipments. And now that invasion has disrupted those grain shipments. And so now they're looking for yet another solution. So here's a country that has had to adapt and adapt again and adapt again, let alone all the people in the country who now don't know what will be happening in terms of supplies for flour for bread, which is one of the staples. And the same is true in Syria, as I've talked with partners there. They've also been notified by their government to expect shortages in flour supplies coming from wheat because of what's happening in the Ukraine. And so really for the first time since the famines of World War I, people are going hungry in Lebanon. And it's not because there's not food available, other kinds of food, even beyond these shortages. It's because people simply do not have funds. They've lost jobs. The inflation rate on food items is between 250 and 500%. So we're grappling with inflation rates of 3 to 8% in the US, and that's painful for people. So multiply that out by hundreds, and it gives you a sense of what people in Lebanon are dealing with. And so our partners, their focus, primary focus right now, and this has not been the case in previous years, is on food security. And through Presbyterian Disaster Assistance and Presbyterian World Mission grants that are funded through local Presbyterians like all of you, One Great Hour of Sharing and other direct gifts, that's what allows us to be able to come alongside of our partners at a time like this and walk with them as they seek to walk with people that are even more vulnerable than they are. And they're all members of the middle class, and the middle class has been eliminated because of these economic and banking crises in Lebanon. So they are struggling, they themselves, our partners, and yet they're coming alongside of people more vulnerable than themselves.
And so for us, a big part of our focus is trying to care for and work with the people on the front lines. We have one of our close friends directs 2 sites that serve underserved children. And on top of all of that work, she takes her modest paycheck to make food bags for some of the people that fall through the cracks, that don't necessarily get served through some of the, many organizations that are trying to provide food right now. And so she's exhausted. And so one of the things that we do is to support her emotionally and spiritually, and also trying to find ways to help fund her effort. But we do that with a lot of people, of just trying to help the people that are on the front lines, trying to keep everyone going.
Wow, that is just hard to imagine. Well, we're
It
so
is.
grateful for
Unless you're in it.
we're so grateful for what you're doing to represent Peace USA to our partners there, to let them know of our love and concern. And we want to continue to know how we can be a part of that. We call this a partnership. So We want to know about ways that beyond, understand the need for financial gifts and resources. Are there other ways that we can be of support to you all, other particular ways we can be praying for you all and our partners there?
I think prayer is foundational. As Scott has mentioned, people are weary, and it's a bone deep, spirit deep weariness. And though the resilience of people in Lebanon is extraordinary, they are literally sick and tired of being resilient through a circumstance that has been entirely created through the negligence of their elected officials. And they really feel they are being taken advantage of by their own government. They don't want to descend into violence. And you can imagine how tempting that is to the human spirit to just lash out when you're living under this kind of deprivation and pressure, and there's no reason for it other than the greed and corruption that has enveloped this government over decades. And so there's several ways to be praying. One is for the elections that are coming up in May. These are really crucial elections, and the hope is to have a significant enough percentage of people elected from civil society organizations to challenge the power and influence of the political elite that have been in control since the end of the Civil War. So that is a huge and critical prayer need, and one really that God's Spirit has to make a way for, because at a human level, it won't happen. And praying for our partners, one of my regular prayers for them is that they would continue to be aware of how God is giving to them day by day, hour by hour, the needed grace and strength and endurance and hope to persevere in their daily lives and in the work to which each of them are called. Right now, I think those are the primary prayer requests.
Yeah, and you just cannot overestimate just the power of a relationship. And so me and Elmarie, yeah, we're weary too, but in kind of a different way. But what really keeps us sustained is folks like you. And I think just the fact that we have this relationship connection, that keeps us going. And the Middle East being a relationship culture, for them knowing that there is a Presbyterian, a cousin congregation that is praying for them, that really does mean a great deal for them. And so, the efforts, and the tangible material things are needed, and yet that those things also, anything you do that says you are trying to engage, even just by being informed, by learning about the situation, those things are huge shots in the arm for us and for our partners. Just knowing that you are choosing to engage, that we're not doing this alone.
Yeah.
Well, we're grateful to be in partnership with you. We will continue to be in prayer for you and to stay connected. We're grateful for your good work and your commitment and your faith. And we know that God's Spirit will sustain you in the work that you're doing. Thank you for representing us to the people of Beirut, of Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria. And God bless you and keep you. And thank you for taking this time to share with us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.